Hey, everybody. Welcome to another incredible episode of Topline. It's episode 51. We've got a very special guest. We've got the fastest rising star content creator, video producer, and CEO and founder of retention.com. It's Adam Robinson, also resident of Austin, Texas. Adam, welcome to our estimable podcast.
If only my revenue was following my personal brand.
We will get it. Your revenue is pretty. Listen, you have the highest revenue of the four people on this call. I can guarantee you that. Welcome to Topline, the podcast for the best founders, operators, and investors in B2B tech. Every week, AJ Bruno, Asad Zaman, and me, Sam Jacobs, will break down what's important for you to know to be the most well-informed professionals in the market. And more profitability. So you're generating more. So I don't want to hear you say a bad thing about yourself. We're here to boost you up. We're here to give you a pat on the back. I'm joined by my co-hosts, AJ Bruno and Asad Zaman. AJ's back from somewhere in the desert. I'm back. And he didn't like that we had a better time with Andrea last week than we had with him. So,
He's going to kill us today.
I've got my grievances right here, Sam. It'll come after. I printed them out. This is the transcript from last week. I've got them all right here. We'll have some notes.
We'll see.
But it will come after our conversation with Adam.
Adam, give us, I gave a brief bio, but give us just a little bit of your background before we dive into the conversation.
Sure. In my first life, I was a credit default swap trader at the now defunct investment bank called Lehman Brothers.
Oh, I love that. This is a great start to the story.
My roommates in New York, when I showed up, were starting a website in my apartment called Vimeo.
Oh, wow.
They wanted to share videos online for some reason.
Was it called Vimeo to start? Didn't it?
Called Vimeo. Yeah.
Didn't have a brand.
And just strangely enough, like they were always like freaked out about copyright. Like I have a position where I just like ignore legal and compliance. I'm like, that's going to take so long to bite me in the ass. I'm just going to do what I'm going to do while it's legal. And then if it ever becomes illegal, then I will have figured something else out. But these guys were worried about that. And there was, probably remember this, Lazy Sunday, the Andy Sandberg video.
Course. Oh, yeah.
So YouTube put that on. They did not consciously. Like 8 months later, YouTube was, they were like neck and neck. And then 8 months later, YouTube got bumped
wow, that's insane.
Like $1 billion.
Wow.
Literally, that was the turning point.
Asad, do you know about this video?
I don't.
It's a very famous video for like 20-somethings in New York. It's like, what do you do on a Sunday? And it's like, you get high, you go to Magnolia Bakery, get some cupcakes, and go see Lord of the Rings. And it's like completely accurate.
I was doing that in Toronto then.
Yeah. So that was life number one. And then the financial crisis happened and like, I'd saved some money. I was just like, well, I want to try to do what those guys did. And somehow I fell into the email newsletter space, which is just very difficult. It was like already after like kind of MailChimp had won the game and was eating the world. And then like Klaviyo came along and won the game again. And like, I just had this thing that was stuck at 3 million and, it was just really freaking hard. And then in trying to do things that MailChimp wasn't doing, that was like the kind of experiments I was doing during 3 years of being totally stuck. I came across this product where like, in the US only, this is okay to do. Someone can hit your website and you can basically de-anonymize pseudonymous identifiers in the ad tech universe, get it to a deliverable email address, and then hand it to somebody. And they can email that person and it's fine in the US. Mind blowing. But you can do that, right? So like that was a company called Get Emails. A few years later, we figured out that e-commerce stores were the best users of it, kind of focused on them. I wanted to buy it to kind of rebrand to something bigger because we weren't just getting people emails anymore. It's called retention.com now. I talk a lot about it on LinkedIn. It used to be 22 million ARR. Now it's 21.2 million ARR. Still 27% total margin. You can read the post from yesterday. It was really hard to write. And then, as a result of like being around this MailChimp thing and just having it soak into my bones for so many years, I've been obsessed with this power of free and like having this like free self-serve offer. And if you can just like go live out enough time where 98% of the world never thinks they should ever have to pay for this, and it's like a birthright for them to have, like kind of Amazon Prime or something like that, and you can like build a business off of the two, then you're left with no competitors, when it all shakes out, because like who's going to go up against that? So I'm attempting this right now with this company called RB2B. It's like a product line of retention.com, and it does the same thing, but instead of emails, it's like website visitor, and we pop a LinkedIn profile into Slack. And then we're literally only hoping to monetize like Salesforce and HubSpot users specifically that are like, have decent traffic and kind of need a filter. And then we can also tie our identity to the HubSpot tracking cookie. And we're going to try to charge for that. We'll see if that works. We don't have the features yet. So we're just like letting it like sort of, but the first month was incredible. We got like 2,800 signups. Like, I mean, I have LinkedIn, so that's marketing, but like didn't spend a dime on anything else. Over 2,800 signups. And this is a crazy thing. 78% of the people collected more than one contact. So like a self-serve activation rate of 78%. I've never heard of anything like this. You know what I mean? Like, so it's like, and the feedback's great. So like,
and that also in the first month, right? That means like, because later on, people are more, it's easier for people to actually activate later on because there's more information around it, etc. It's an easy activation. In the first month, that's insane.
So like there's, I'm encouraged because the business I have now is like good, but not great. And this new one has like 100 times more going for it than the old one.
Can I ask some questions?
Oh, please. Yeah.
I think that's the purpose of this sound.
I mean, I think, tell me about and this is not in any way like accusatory or anything. This is like, I've been going on the same journey, maybe like you're like 12 months behind me or whatever, in terms of some of the feeling of, you feel like you're, I don't mean to use genders, but like you feel like you're the man. There's a period where you feel like I'm building this incredible business. And then there's a period where you hit some kind of stall point, is what corporate executive board. How have you managed that emotional journey? You talk about writing that post. You're talking about, I mean, just everybody on this call has their personal identity and their self-worth, especially AJ, tied up in their company and the performance of their company. But I'm kidding about AJ, but so it's really hard. And especially when you're sharing in public and you're committed to it, and last year you were talking about being a unicorn and getting all the way to 50 million in revenue. And now
it's like a nothing-a-corn.
If you're generating 6 to 8 million in free cash, which is what you said in your post yesterday, then,
it's good.
It's worth $80 million, by the way, just so you know.
10 times EBITDA, Sam.
I think so.
Assuming I can get it to stop shrinking. Was just,
right.
You know what I mean?
But what's it been like emotionally? How have you coped? Yeah. What do you do to make sure that you've got the right mindset? I mean, there are investors that are watching your LinkedIn. So when you share that your MRR is declining, there's people that would have given you money that are probably going to give you less money or whatever. Yeah. How do you think about that?
I mean, that's not like I get heat from our chief of staff. She's like, dude, like you putting this down on LinkedIn, like, how do you think it feels for the employees to read it? I'm like, honestly, like, I hate to say this, but like, they're not the audience, it's like, and if there were any denying that like LinkedIn hadn't been the greatest thing that had happened to our company in the last 12 months, I think that I would take that comment more seriously. And by the way, like what I did say that I would do, it got brought up in executive offsite. They're like, I don't think that people like learning things about the company that they work at on a LinkedIn post. And I was like, okay, fair enough. Right.
That's
like,
good. That's fair.
Yeah. Fair enough. So I'm like, I'll send it to them a week early,
Yeah.
And then, Kelly's just like, dude, like, can you just take 15 minutes and write an update to them? Because I think that they would really appreciate that. So that's kind of where we ended up there. But back to your question, my experience being an entrepreneur, and this is one of the reasons that I advocate for bootstrapping, is that, call it whatever you want to call it, it's a series of getting stuck and unstuck again. That's all that I have ever experienced. And I've been doing it for 11 years. I've maybe met a couple people who it's just been up and to the right, and that's all they've ever known. But like most of the entrepreneurs that I know, if you want to call it stacking S curves or whatever, it's like there's sort of nothing, and then there's like boom, and then it flattens out, and then there's another boom. If you're lucky enough to sell your business on the boom, good for you. A lot of times I've observed when people are trying to sell it on the boom, some banker or something talks them into buying something. You know, like, well, you know, I didn't get paid $100 million, but like I got 50 million in debt, and now I own this other thing, and we're going to sell it for more. And then it's like, you know, like I've just seen that happen a lot. So this time, so emotions are hard to talk about because they change so often. Like I didn't sleep well last night because of this, but like I'm really at peace with it now because I've like kind of spent 3 hours on the phone with, I mean, I'm not totally at peace with it but like I think I would be totally at peace with it the day that I saw the decline was arrested, you know, because like that's the thing that I just don't understand right now. I'm like, man, this like the pipeline versus churn is just like, I don't know when it's going to stop.
Wait, Adam,
you know?
Can you explain that? The day the decline was arrested, is that what you said?
The decline.
Meaning if his ARR stops shrinking.
The day the decline, the day I understand when it's going to stop completely or go the other way or something, right?
Well, it's an interesting point that you brought up on just terms of like this S curve feeling that happens. And I get that. Being a second business, was your first business venture backed?
No, also bootstrapped.
It's interesting, and you're in Austin. There was this whole like bootstrap movement in 2012 in Austin. It was very like anti-venture capital. How long have you been in Austin?
You know, I should have moved in 2012, but I stayed in New York for some reason, and I moved in 2019.
2019. Yeah. I did the opposite. I should have stayed in Texas and moved in 2018 and then sold my business in 2019 and then gave a ton of money to Pennsylvania. It was great.
Yeah, there's 10%. Yeah.
There was so much fun to do that. But like Austin had this like counterculture because of Austin Ventures and like a lot of founders getting screwed and then that blowing up. And I didn't know if you like got into that counterculture aspect of it or if there was like is there a chip on your shoulder from a venture versus bootstrapped, or is it just this like you're always feeling like you're solving problems, feeling that you really enjoy and don't think that happens in venture?
So what I will say is, like, I'm kind of starting, I would consider this my third startup that I'm starting right now. You know, it's like a totally different product and TAM and what, like the team, the whole thing.
You're talking about like RB2?
Yeah, exactly. Even though it's like in the LLC of retention.com or whatever, it's like a different startup. Retention.com, I started after 3 years of being stuck with a small but positive cash flow bootstrapped company. I think it's very different to start your, you know, to just be like, I am at zero with no resources at all. I'm going to bootstrap this.
Yeah.
Like that is really hard. When you have another company that's throwing off $6 million of free cash, it's really easy to bootstrap the following venture, you know, which like, so like the thing that I wanted to raise money 18 months ago, you know, do some growth equity, take some chips off the table, whatever. I'm so glad I didn't because my life would be miserable right now. But because I just got 23 so wrong, you know, it's just, I would have sold this thing that just didn't happen at all.
No experience doing that. Absolutely no experience doing that.
Yeah, but like, why don't more people, you know, it's like, this seems like a novel thing to me. It's like the degree of difficulty of getting something to like a SaaS to 3 million ARR is really not absurdly high with a super lean team. And then you can stop there and be like, okay, that's probably not getting that much bigger than that. But like, I'm going to like get somebody running it and then use, you know, if it's throwing off $1 million, like use that to fund my lifestyle and like another team to like, you know, skunk work something else. And then that, you know, whatever hits on the second time is probably going to be much bigger, you know? So like, that's kind of, I'm like kind of doing this portfolio approach to startups, which I say I'm a bootstrapper, but like, I don't know how, you would bootstrap the go-to-market I'm doing right now. It's just like, well, I'm just going to defer revenue for like 2 years and let everyone use it for free and just figure it out.
I mean, there was the rise of venture studios like 3 years, and vertical SaaS also kind of has a play into this as well. I think, where you're just having like creating these niche vertical tasks and then spinning them off, doing a play and then spinning it off. But that's not what you're doing. You're building real businesses. What it sounds like you're really struggling with is your own time management in the business that you see as a huge opportunity in RB2, and like a company that is also throwing as cash like that. But the company's not that big headcount wise, right?
60. I mean, is that bigger? I don't know. Bigger than I thought. It's 55 over there, and then I have it's 55 on the old business, and I have 5 working on the new one.
And where are the people based?
All over the U.S. and Canada, basically.
Okay.
Very cool. Yep. I guess, what you were saying, it's really interesting because I was talking to a founder who is going out to raise a seed round right now. And I'd spoken to this guy a couple of months ago. And the business he wanted to build versus the business he's pitching now is very different. It's like, well, why the difference? And he's like, because I need to get this off the ground, for which I need starting capital. And the only way to get starting capital is to sell an AI story that has venture scale. So you're kind of like backing in from, it has to be venture scale, it has to be an AI story. And that's the only way for me to get the money I need to even give this thing some legs, right? And that seems to be the struggle that a lot of people have. So they give up what might have been the thing that they're more excited to build, the business that might be the actual business worth building. And they have to go with this second or third tier idea because it's the only viable way to even get going. And the question that, a lot of those people have, some of the folks in our Slack channel had this question for you, is that bootstrapping seems like such an attractive approach to running and building a business, but how do I get started? So is your advice to them that start something small that generates a little bit of cash flow and then use that to create, like, think more long-term and think of it in stages? Is that the advice?
So I had saved money from my trading career. But by the way, I ended up plowing like $1 million in this thing, the first company. I think I could have gotten it off the ground. I would have spent every penny that I had up to a certain amount, right? Because that's just how, to me, on your first venture, that's just how it is. But I think I probably could, if I only had 200 grand to spend, I could have still got it to the same place, So that was my story. And I understand that's not the position that most people are in, right? Yeah. Maybe, so there's an alternative to venture. I think it's harder now, but it's kind of like a friends and family where the understanding is we're not trying to create Google here. This is going to be a nice business. Maybe we'll pay dividends someday, whatever. Yeah. Right.
And that's very, if that wasn't possible, there would be no restaurants in our country.
Yeah, exactly.
People are investing in businesses that are likely going to fail, where you're supporting the person that started it, that don't expect a venture return all the time.
Yep. All the time. And this software should be much more attractive than a restaurant, to be honest, especially if you've done something before with yourself. So there's that. And then the way that I actually like the most, which I did not do, but I've heard many times, is I just have so many stories from the email space because I lived in the email space for 10 years. Yeah. So the MailChimp guys, they were running a web design agency, and they had this email sending SaaS that they were building for their web design clients. And then there was one day where the email sending SaaS was bigger than their web design business, and they turned it off and focused on it. And then whatever. Nathan Barry is another guy who's got this email SaaS called ConvertKit, just amazing bootstrap story. He was selling info products, whatever, you know what I mean? So he started ConvertKit with $50K. I spent $1 million, he spent 50 grand. Yeah. $50,000. It's actually a really good founder story. He was getting nowhere with it. A year and a half in, he was about to give up. He talked to Heaton Shaw. Heaton Shaw's this is a dog. It's not going anywhere. You would have known by now. Give it up. You're going to be
Heaton Shaw.
He used to be a Neil Patel type influencer, BLG,
Heaton Shaw.
Yeah. So And then something happened. He like did one more push, started hitting up this creator space before it was known as that. And it was just this viral loop it created with people with audiences recommending it to their audience, and it just went parabolic. So yeah. Another thing Nathan says, which I love, is that you may not want to start your entrepreneurial career as the founder of a SaaS company. That is really difficult for a lot of reasons, especially because most SaaS companies you have no brand. So usually your only option is like to start charging $9 a month or something, or $99 or whatever. You can't just normally start selling 100K ACV deals. So, and the reason is it just like, there's an amazing, another email reference here. Gail Goodman's the CEO of Constant Contact. She has this talk from like 15 years ago called The Slow SaaS Ramp of Death. and it's all about like building Constant Contact at 300 million in revenue, like $15 at a time, and look, it takes a lot of, that's how my company was the first one. It's like the first subscription we sold was $15. And then, over the course of 8 years, we got up to 60, right? But like, it takes a lot of $15 payments to like pay somebody to build your website or whatever, it's just a hard game. What's easier? A consulting firm with, 3 customers, right? Like maybe start there, like learn the skill of, selling a service, providing a service, billing someone, providing support, making sure they're happy, making them happy enough to whether they refer other people. And then maybe start a SaaS a little later. Cause like, and there's all sorts of problems with starting SaaS, right? Like the classic problem that I've seen a lot is, somebody will say they want to build some software. I have this like, my brother swam at Stanford, and his roommate is this guy, Tate, who's been my CTO for 12 years, and he was an all-American swimmer and a comp sci major. Either one of those things at Stanford is remarkable. Doing both of them at once is, that's the kind of guy he is. And people talk to them, are like, yeah, cool. So like, where do I get someone like Tate to like build this for me? It's like, well, you with no experience can't, right? Like, fortunately on my first venture, my brother knew him, and like, he just hated his job so much that he's been working with me for 12 years. But like, that's another problem. It's like, how do you get someone to build this for you if you're a sales and marketing guy? I mean, if you're a tech person, then honestly, like distributions these days as big a problem as the tech is. It's like there's just a bunch of impossible problems when you're starting out that just make it really hard to get going.
I definitely think... I think getting going, if you're non-technical, building a software product is, again, that could be the kiss of death. And that's why, to the point, like I think a lot of non-technical people, my Pavilion is a services business, is a content business, is an events business. And when we've stuck our foot in the bear trap, it's been because we tried to become a software company when we weren't. And even to your point, Adam, I had a conversation with a founder that we all know, who called me and said, I raised money because I thought I was going to build a software business. Turns out there's a lot of opportunity in the services business. That's kind of near and dear to my heart. But my investors are saying, I thought you were going to go try and build a unicorn. Why aren't you building software? If you want to build software, that's great. Give me my money back. Or if you don't want to build software, if you want to build a services business, give me my money back. And my advice was, it's a non-recourse investment. You don't get your money back. Maybe you can offer to pay them back a little bit over time, but I certainly don't think you need to like reverse the wires. But I do think the hard part about building software is, besides the fact that managing engineers is difficult if you don't have this Stanford guy, it's just the upfront capital investment of, you're going to spend a long time building the software. And it's not going to be in any kind of shape that people would pay for a long time. And when people finally do pay for it, you'll have outlaid tremendous amounts of capital. So maybe in the modern world with GPTs and with copilots, and maybe with even AI that can write its own software, maybe all of that will become far easier, which would be amazing. But in Sam, this environment, it's difficult.
It's not the writing of the code that's the hard part. Honestly, software companies have made it much tougher on ourselves to do this. And we've talked about this previously, the barriers to entry with SOC 2 Type 2. Wait, do you have Vanta? Do you have Drata? Do you have whatever? What's the, all of the observability platforms that you have to have on all of your cloud providers, and how all of the technologies interact with each other, and your continuous deployment and the pieces behind it. You as a CEO, like, all of us have that sales and marketing background. And over the last 15 years, I've seen over 2 companies that piece of it. And I've mentioned this, where Trendkite didn't even have a password reset for the first 4 years. I emailed the chief marketing officer of Nike that their password was swish234 one time. That's what it was. And that's how you thought about it. And so it's changed monumentally. So I do agree that
don't you
bootstrapping...
think, AJ, since you're back, we can disagree now. Don't you think...
Let's go.
So don't you think that is somewhat necessary now? Because when we were selling perpetual software, it was different. The move to the cloud enabled the ability to charge subscriptions, right? Which is a usage-based pricing model of a sort. And with everything in the cloud, you have to have certain protections in place. We're finding out every single day that there are data leaks where people's personal information, credit card information, social security is available on .web for anyone to pick up. And so you need some level of basic fundamental regulation to keep things in order.
Sure, but we are okay. That, I agree with you, but how many of us use Reddit? Reddit just had a data breach where I was just notified by 1Password that I better change all of my passwords. So we allow companies that are much bigger than us to have these issues with no recourse and no accountability to it. And yet we as startups take on a lot of the burden to be able to have to build to these things, to have to understand and have a lawyer look at a 30-page contract and understand limitation of liability and understand indemnification and understand all of these pieces of it that we are taking on. And we're just supposed to say, F it, we're signing. By the way, Adam, this is a no swear zone. You have a swear jar deposit of $22.3 million that you have to make.
I think this goes to one of the things Adam was saying, which is I think a lot of times people are starting companies and they just want an outcome quickly. They've got this, you talk to people and everybody has this young retirement age that they're optimizing for. And so as quickly as I can do this is the best case scenario. And I think if you're not the technical founder, you might want to hone some of your business skills before embarking on building what is a difficult thing to build. And so starting in the services space, developing some of these understandings and knowing the nuance of where do I have to strictly follow this regulation and where do I have space a little bit to operate as well. I think you develop a lot of that by starting a small services business first. Adam, one of the things you guys talk about is the efficiency of your model, right? So your COO made a post about how you guys can get to $1 billion valuation, so 83 million in revenue by 2026 with less than 10 employees. Forget the timeline, forget the $1 billion valuation. That revenue for that number of employees is quite intense.
Well, we haven't done it yet.
Yeah, but
literally, he's talking about a product that is free right now.
But even with retention, he said you guys got to 13 million with 6 employees.
That is true.
Yeah, and none of us have done 13 million with 6 employees. What's going on?
How many companies have ever done that?
Yes,
13 million with 6 employees.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I don't know, but it was about to break at that point, though. If you can imagine, it was kind of 5 co-founder level-ish people, and then probably 4 co-founder level-ish people, and then 2 kind of employee level-ish people, and it was just everybody was completely overloaded. And we just had, I don't know if we have the right number of people right now, TBD where the size of the business is, but I said this at SaaS Open. If you have one thing that I've really just come to appreciate is that with SaaS, it's product, right? You can set sales goals all you want. The product is so important, and the product itself having word of mouth is it either enables everything else you would do to speed it up, or it makes it impossible. I think it's literally kind of black. And if you're in between, then you're stuck in this thing where it's just you're just having to push so hard to like move forward or whatever. So that was just a story of like, the people that we were selling that product to, they had never heard of anything like I described to you. They're like, what do you mean you can give me an email for someone who doesn't fill out a form? That sounds amazing. We're like, cool, try it out. We'll sell you 1,000 emails for $500. If you don't like it, stop. So it was literally just cold email and then selling that type of subscription. It was super high churn. We really didn't know who our best customers are. I mean, I guess I still don't by that definition. But yeah, it was, so really, I'll tell you what, Diana, my co-founder, used to work for this guy, Ross Paquette at Marapost. And Marapost is also in the email space. Yeah. My whole life is in the email space. So this guy very quickly got to 30 million servicing this affiliate sender world. And then he's just been stuck and he's done some bolt-on acquisitions. And I don't know what he's doing now, but like his company's bigger.
I think he's doing close to 100.
Yeah. Yeah. He's like bought a couple, anyway.
Canadian company, right?
Yeah. It's a Canadian company and he bought 2 companies in Queensland.
Oh yeah.
For like a few times revenue. And then, or maybe, yeah. Anyway, but like this guy for the first 8, he literally had like a decade where he owned all the equity and he was like generating $20 million of free cash and just like pocketing it. And I thought that Get Emails could be something like that. I was like, the churn is so bad that it's going to stop at some point, but there's a chance we could get it between 25 and 30 million and like have 15 people sitting around here, and then really what happened was I was sitting in an office with Jasper AI. I watched them do what they did. And then, they raised a couple $100 million, started hiring these incredible people. And I got very influenced by them and like really wanted to hit a home run. So I went down the path I went down. But that was my motivation. I was just like, everyone's terrified of high churn SaaS because, of the reason we should all be terrified. You can't grow them beyond a certain point. Business. But like, I don't see very many people running companies like that, right? It's almost like you stay away from those spaces because you want to be, in the game for something bigger or whatever. But that's a pretty big game. Interestingly, he's just kind of an interesting guy in the first place, but he was miserable the whole time it was happening because Klaviyo and he wanted to be like Salesforce Marketing Cloud and like whatever else. But to me, it looked appealing. So short answer is I was shooting for that. Like, and everybody was on board. Just like, let's see how far we can get this with almost nobody. It's a different approach this time because what we're going to try to do, like, so with this LinkedIn thing, so much about what I think about my work life is like, how is this story going to be told? Because that's so important. It's like the LinkedIn thing's so important for what we're doing. So I just think that the world is waiting for the startup that gets to X tens of millions of revenue and uses chatbots instead of employees. And I think we're in a great position. Like this product lends itself to that being a possibility. So it's like, why not try it? And then as it's playing out, I can like be that story that like Sam Altman's like alluding to, right? The one-man unicorn. It's like, well, we're not one man, but like whatever. So that's the real motivation behind it. And I've kind of gotten my religion from like, I'm not a unicorn guy. Like I'm like, we have shared resources between these 2 companies, but like, I much prefer this, like, I will forego growth for like a lot of cash flow, life, anyway, long-winded answer.
I think it's really interesting to see you guys do this because it's unconventional, it's different. I think there is a uniqueness to what you're building that I think allows for a super efficient workforce around it. But it's fascinating to see those type of numbers play out. Like, let's say it was breaking at 6 people or 5 people at 13 million, but maybe at 20 people it wouldn't have broken. But even 20 people at 13 million is rare to see, right? So it's just really interesting. How long did it take you to develop LinkedIn into this channel that is now driving so much momentum for you?
I'm currently making a keynote presentation for Kanata's event about this. So it really took 12 months to hit, and like to really hit. So the visualization, and I would be curious to hear if you think the same thing about this, Sam. I see LinkedIn as like a pyramid, and like the bottom is like there's awareness that you can get from hiring ghostwriters and getting engagement circles, and like it actually isn't useless, but it's not what Sam and I have. I would advise a CEO to do that because
I'm flattered to be in the same.
But you definitely have it. I mean, you're the reason that I started working with Alec. I'm like, this guy is writing much better stuff than we're putting out. Like, I had a ghostwriter doing it, and it was stuff that is real thought leadership, and it was stuff that like really made people feel like they knew you or whatever. So then it's like kind of like there's a middle section that's like. So there's like this well-known versus known well. You can get like really good at creating LinkedIn-friendly content that is not really specific to either your experience or your ICP. And you can grow a large audience that is engaged around these topics. But it's stuff like, work-life balance or like, mental health or like whatever right? It's like not going to be people that you're going to sell to. And then the ultimate level is like with Alec, we were able to figure out like if I write a post about, I bootstrapped 10 million ARR in 13 months with 6 people or whatever, and here's my 5x. Like I know that is going to activate early stage founders, and they're one of my audiences. If I write about how, Clearbit and 6 Sense, like when you buy them both, there's no overlap between their identity products. I know that that's going to activate CMOs and VP marketings at Series B and beyond startups because those are the people doing ABM, right? And then if I talk about predictable revenues dead, then it's like kind of both of those and some salespeople or whatever. So it's like and then there's a work in public stuff, which depending on what it is, it kind of brings in certain people. The point is, the ultimate place you're getting to is like you have such an understanding of what you can write and what audience it activates.
And that takes 12 months.
Well, it took 12 months for me.
I think it takes, the other thing that's changed is the algorithm has actually changed recently, which has been really weird. But
I want to ask you this. Do you think, here's my theory. It hit me this morning when I was taking a shower. I'm like, those So I think what's happening.
Many beeps in this show.
I think. Oh yeah, I'm sorry about that. God,
it's okay. We have children.
I think that they may be dialing it back as they're releasing more features that allow you to pay for promotion. Do you think that that's the case?
I do think that's the case.
Yeah,
say more about this. I don't know about this.
They're just going to try and monetize. They don't want to give us everything for free.
So like what Facebook did where you could like make a post and then sponsor that post. Now we'll all have to sponsor. Oh my God.
So we're like, oh, that's great that we can do a thought leadership ad on our posts that crush. Until they ratchet down the algorithm. It's like, oh, like, well, so now like as of last week or something, you can even pay, like you used to have, if I wanted to promote Sam's post, he would have to have a retention.com job in his bio. Now I can promote one of his posts without that.
What?
Yeah.
Why? How?
I don't know.
You can promote my post.
He doesn't even have to have a role in order for me to promote.
Well, you guys, my birthday's coming up. I'd like each of you to promote a post for me.
By the way, Adam, the other thing I think is that I think they have increased by the way, so the person that we're referring to is Alec Paul. Alec and I are teaching a course on how to build your brand on LinkedIn. It starts on April 16th through Pavilion. And we're also doing it in partnership with GLG. And Adam was going to give us some kind of testimony. We're going to use your face on the landing page, buddy.
I gave it already.
Oh, there we go. Yeah. But so one of the parts of the playbook that every LinkedIn consultant will tell you is that it's fine to recycle content if you wait a certain amount of time. And so if you build up an archive of old posts, even the one that's running today. So the one that's running today is from last year when Kip Bodnar, the CMO of HubSpot, this is from me, was talking about how, all things considered, he wants to he'd rather just spend as much time, money, and energy as possible making the funnel as big as possible than looking at optimization through the funnel, which is, it's, saying you need more leads is not the most radical thing in the world to say as a marketer. But nevertheless, it's kind of interesting because a lot of people talk about win rates. A lot of people talk about, MQL to SQO or whatever. And Kip's point is the reason we bought The Athletic the information, whatever, the hustle. What's it called?
The hustle.
The hustle, Sam Parr's thing.
Yes.
The reason that we bought that is for distribution. And we want bigger audience. And we get big audience, then it's okay if the leads aren't all great. That was the point of it. When I wrote it last year, it did gangbusters. It did great work. We reposted with some modifications, and it's got like 40 likes.
53.
53. Thank you very much.
To be honest.
And when I write original stuff these days, it does like brand new original stuff. It does way, way better. That might seem completely obvious, but for a long time, you could repost something and count on it to become much more popular. The other thing that, by the way, is just random tidbit or random aside, is that there's a stall point in posts now that wasn't there before. So my point is, you used to post something, and the rough rule of thumb was if you were getting more than a minute, you could plan on it being pretty big.
Yeah.
And especially if you got like 2 or 3 likes a minute. So if you posted it 15 minutes later, you're at like 30 or 40 likes and some multiplier of impressions. You could count on that running for 24 hours and getting really, really big, getting to 600, 700, 800 likes, 1,000 likes. I've seen multiple posts of mine stall out right around 200, 250, where I think, I got a winner here. And then it just hits a wall, and LinkedIn is intentionally throttling it back or just presenting it to fewer people than they have before, which is all of this is, LinkedIn's great until it's not. These are the perils of building your castle on someone else's land.
Yeah. I thought that post yesterday, it absolutely crushed out of the gates. I was like, man, it's going to be huge when it's great because it's a monthly update or whatever. And literally just like 45,000 impressions, it just stopped.
That's interesting.
How many likes do you have on it now? I mean, because I saw that post, right? And I'm like, oh my God, he's
that
so
one
vulnerable. He's so real. This is going to have
I
like
thought this would be viral. It's 459.
The comments were unbelievable,
Yeah, just 459 for that quality content wild. Is very low, actually.
For 80,000 followers, that's actually really bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And this is why I'm building my personal brand on Topline, by the way.
I got it.
You're building it on Truth Social.
Canada would say use Audience Plus. But the problem is it's not distribution, I mean, email maybe, but yeah.
Okay. This was great, guys.
Adam, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it. And we're rooting for you.
Can I say one more thing about this LinkedIn thing?
Yeah. So you can say whatever. You can say 2 more things.
What's amazing to me is that my profile can set meetings for people at my company that no one had ever heard of, right? And the show rate is the same as if it was me. Is that interesting?
That's interesting.
I'm like, tell us what you mean by that.
So it's like, hey, Pete's running this. Can you hop on the phone with him to discuss? And the attendance rate on that call, they are not disappointed in the least that it is not me that's on the phone.
That's really interesting.
Yeah. So it's the power,
I think it happens at a certain size though. So you guys are both roughly 80,000 followers, right? I think at that, 7380. I think at that point, people expect that, okay, this guy, if he got 100 requests for meetings, he don't be in all of them. I think, whereas when you're earlier on in your LinkedIn journey, let's say you have 10, 15, I think people actually expect different things from the person.
Mm-hmm. That could be.
Yeah.
Could be.
Okay.
That was it.
Thank you, Adam.
Thanks for having me, team.
Thanks for coming.
Appreciate being a guest.
We'll see you on the Pavilion Slack, and we'll add you to the Topline channel so that we can pepper you with more questions.
This was brilliant. The post yesterday was really gangster.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Maybe we'll get some more likes from this podcast.
That's the goal.
Cool. Take care, guys.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.
What do the revenue leaders at Google, 3M, IBM, Shopify, Square, and Cisco have in common? Their teams all use SalesLoft to hit their number. SalesLoft is the only platform that's designed for the way revenue teams work every day, so sellers can prioritize and take the right actions to get more deals done. From prospecting and deal management to coaching and forecasting. No more guesswork. No more wasted time on non-selling activities. Follow Sales Loft on LinkedIn to learn more.
Okay, the three of us are back.
AJ, welcome back. Thought that was a great conversation with Adam. He's a fascinating guy.
That is fascinating, right?
Super fascinating.
AJ, can you say more about this Austin movement that you were saying? What happened eventually? When was the turning point? Because bootstrapping isn't part of the culture of Austin right now.
Okay,
so what happened?
Yeah. Let me talk about this. This is actually very fascinating. I recalled back when he was speaking about Austin and then just bootstrapping. During South by Southwest, anyone that's in Austin usually gets out of Austin, except for the first week. The first week, there is this really interesting thing that happens where Austin Ventures, this is a throwback, was the 300-pound gorilla venture capital institution in Austin, used to throw this huge party on a rooftop on West 6th Street. I forget the name of the bar. It doesn't matter. And at this party, all of the Austin founders, all of the VCs, everyone was there. And in this corner, this sectioned off corner, was the Austin Bootstrap Society or whatever. And it would just be, I forget the person who ran it. And it would just be companies that bootstrapped theirs. And it was this very weird parallel where all of the Austin founders that were bootstrapped looked down on the VCs and the Austin founders. So it was a very bizarre. I'm going to find this whole thing. Asid, I feel like you're just trying to take away from.
Go through it. I don't believe he has print. You have a printer at home?
I have a printer. Yeah, it's right behind. I have two printers at my house.
For not having a printer recently, they're like, "What kind
you
of
should yell at the person that yelled at you for not having a printer." I think it's a bad expectation. People have printers around.
When I was like,
I brother's printer, by the way. I do not. I am very against printing companies having a SaaS subscription model. Like, that's ridiculous.
A printing company.
Yeah, it's not frustrating.
Like a Konica Minolta saying, "Pay me a monthly," but then they give you the machine for free.
Here's my only note.
Anytime they're using, if the ink runs out, they have a recurring revenue business.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Here's my only note on last week. Andrea made a lot of sense.
Here we go. List of grievances. We're not talking about Adam Robinson now, folks. We're talking. AJ was driving through the desert with his wife and kids, steaming. Hey guys, let's listen to Topline. It came out. Oh my god, these mother effers!
Like my kid, I blasted it through all of the RV's 35 speakers. I was smiling the whole episode, and then the very end, Sam goes, "AJ, we're good," and that's where it turned to a frown. And it was a very sad last 2.5 hours drive through the desert in southern Utah.
And was rubbing your shoulders. It's okay, baby. It's okay.
They parked on the side. Oh my god, we missed you so much.
I know. It's okay. I really it was a good episode. The thing that I know it's on the docket to talk about was the Pavilion survey, and some of the data from that was fascinating. I will just skip over that. Austin said the very nicest house he's ever been in was a divorce lawyer's house, and he trash talked Indian food. By the way, I don't know if everyone.
It's not as good as Pakistani food.
It's good. So we'll skip over that. Sam self-fulfilled his destiny by calling himself a jerk on the episode. That was also
this is just a fisting. This is like a minute by minute critique, and then in minute 32 this happened.
He came in prepared. I love it. Okay, now tell us about your quarter, because you had a different experience in Q1 to what the data says, right? So kind of break it down for us. Like, what did you guys see?
Well, we talked about our close rate. So I said our close rate was at above 40% in the middle of the quarter. It ended up being 35%. 35%. So we averaged out. We had a great quarter. We finished very strong, 150% of our plan.
This is new business or overall?
Overall in attainment, and including, we had a really strong upsell quarter, and on the retention that we're going to dive into.
Is the upselling happening because now these sales teams are no longer contracting, but they're actually expanding?
Here's this is the real here's the real guys, and I'd love your opinion on this.
Yeah.
Seriously, real.
Yeah.
We have a decision to make. And this is a board conversation, so I'm having it real time on Topline. So we are seeing higher retention from our mid-market deals, higher ACVs, and we're seeing higher close rates, starting to see higher close rates on those deals and faster sales cycles. So we could move up market, 100%. Our down market transactionally we're seeing those sales cycles happen faster. The ACVs are actually lowering. And we're also seeing challenging retention rates around those. Now, I won't talk to the CRMs that we're seeing these, but there is also a world to say where, there's a disparity between those two.
Yeah.
So, and that's really fascinating. So we're going to have a board conversation around this. But the thing that struck me is, I'm curious to dive into it, is it didn't seem like a lot of the CROs, executives, CMOs, CEOs were seeing the same things in Q1 that we were seeing. So, Sam, I know you all had a good quarter.
Yeah, we had a good quarter. Not as good as you. We didn't do 150%. I mean, I think.
Well, when you set the target to $10, that's pretty easy.
That's our reforecast. We're 150% to our reforecast. What was your reforecast? Oh, that we wouldn't make any money at all.
Because winners win.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I talked about this last week. I think to your point, AJ, I'm surprised at a little bit of the malaise. I'm surprised that more people aren't more optimistic. And I certainly, and there are people that, the enthusiasm I'm hearing from you, I haven't seen replicated consistently, but I also, it's not that people are going out of business. It's that they're doing business. They're just not, there's not some rebound back to pre-2023, but all of us said that wasn't going to happen.
I think that's part of it, right? I think people's expectations of what 2024 might have been were just wild. Maybe people thought that'd be miraculously different, and it's incrementally better. And there's a difference if you thought it's going to flip versus it becomes incrementally better. But when you do talk to people, there are a lot of people that had a decent Q1, but maybe there's a delta between what they wanted and where they got to.
No. Well, that's my feedback. I give you all.
This mid-market thing. So, are you guys now deciding to go either pure mid-market or why does it have to be either or? Why can't QuotaPath go after both markets? And you've got
I think Adam just talked about this. Adam had a really good point about that you're kind of stuck in the middle in some of these swim lanes and making decisions.
I have a thought on some of this stuff. I would love your take on it, gents.
Look at that.
Because but it's very specific to my business. But this is why we listen to Topline, to get the ins and the outs. Here's my question, because it's related to what you're saying, AJ. You're talking about going up market versus mid market, right? And I'm just constantly. Did we record before or after Asa? Do you remember? Did I talk about talking to Kyle Norton on my run last week?
No.
Oh, wow.
No, I missed this.
Oh my God!
This was the Asa Sam text.
I will say
this was a zone 2 run, though. They were having a conversation while running.
Kyle Norton is a special talent. Special.
Told you.
So he gave this talk at SaaS Open last week. He talked about how owner.com has 4-to-1 LTV to CAC, and SDR, despite the fact that they have a $9,000 ACV with SDR supporting account executives. And the interesting thing that he said was that SDRs, he never wants them doing research.
Yeah.
Because the question is, how can you support an SDR framework if you're doing SMB sales like that, all on the phone, by the way, almost all on the phone, because they call restaurant owners. And he said that the secret was building their own database, and that they bought a food database, bought a restaurant database, but then they spent a lot of time enriching it and enhancing it. And they use AI to do it, and they use scrapers, and it's this constant cycle of building their own proprietary asset, so that they can get to very, very close call to connect rates, and super highly efficient sales team as a consequence.
Yeah.
And that got me thinking about just total addressable market in general. And that's where I come back to like enterprise versus SMB or versus mid-market, which is just, for me, Pavilion, there's a debate of like, there's all these businesses like Sales Benchmark Index, Forrester, Gartner, they're selling stuff to the CRO, selling $100,000 engagements, $250,000 engagements to much larger organizations. And we serve, the high growth ecosystem of 0 to 100 million in ARR, but really 0 to 50 million in ARR.
Yeah.
Early stage companies, B2B, go to market. And we you, me, and Andrea and Asad, we did this on one of our calls recently, where we looked at Sales Navigator. But the question I have fundamentally is, before you go up market, but I'm curious what you think, AJ. Like, before you go up market, let's make sure that all of our existing channels where we have efficiency, that we're not introducing inefficiency almost for its own sake. Like, hey, this thing's working really well, let's try to do something else. It's like, well, don't you want to keep doing that thing that's working really well? So my fundamental question is like, how big is the market for Pavilion? And, and some part of me wants to believe, and when we're on LinkedIn, I feel like maybe it's small, right? Because I feel like I'm talking to the same people all the time. But then when I zoom out, I'm like, well, how many go-to-market executives are there at high-growth companies, B2B, North America, Western Europe? Are there 50,000? Are there 100,000? Because if there's 50,000, then we do need to move up market. If there's 250,000, then we're good. If there's 1 million, we're golden. We don't even have to worry about it. My instinct is that within our specific ICP, it's probably 100,000, which means that about 15% of that have tried Pavilion, 10 to 15% have tried, and either our current members or our canceled members. What do you think, AJ?
We just recently did a complete sellable addressable market to HubSpot. HubSpot Ventures is an investor. And so I did all public information around this. And basically I did an analysis, number of customers in our target countries, and then number of customers using Sales Hub, right? HubSpot CRM, and the percentage of customers in our ICP, and so on and so forth. And we got down to a number. So HubSpot just had this huge thing, 200,000 customers. That's what they just crossed. Out of those 200,000, we felt like 34,000. And that 34,000 with our ASP adds up to about 250 million today. And their growth potential is that in like 36 months, they're growing 40% year over year, is 450 million with just HubSpot. And that's a true analysis.
So 34,000, tell me the filters again.
They're 200. It starts at the 200,000. The number of customers that are using Sales Hub, which is their CRM, target country, and then we went through ICP filtering and industry filtering. Basically, that's
34,000 companies
that could be quota path customers with sales.
These would be the more transactional, higher churn type of customers, right?
Correct.
Yeah,
correct. Which gave us the 200 million plus number. And when I think about it that way, I'm like, oh, there's way more for us to tap into right now through the existing channels. And like, we shouldn't get distracted and feel like, oh my goodness, even though we had a whole bunch of competitor companies, the Salesforce bought a company that will not be named. We had a lot of those ex-customers come over to us with higher ACVs. And that was like, oh, that's the kind of like the decision point conversation.
I guess for you guys, the question is that signal or is that noise? Because are they just coming? Is the data set viable enough to make such a big decision around?
You all in Topline listeners are having a board conversation right now. That's the conversation.
One more question for you. I think here's the actual question. Maybe that's one of the questions. One for me is, what is a reasonable market share assessment? Okay, the TAM, the SAM, right? The serviceable addressable market, sales addressable market's 34,000. What is reasonable to assume? Because saying like, oh, it's a $250 million market, great, but you're not going to get 50% market share. You're going to get a small percent. What's the percent that you tend to?
Well, I think, that's why I said I brought up Adam, where he was talking about like competitively in that 34,000. Are there any other competitors that I will actually run into? And I believe the answer is no, for that are using it. So like, Yeah, but you also have to think about the growth rate and how many customers we have now. So I get what you're saying, Sam. My point is that that's a channel, that's like a distribution word of mouth challenge. That's a problem that we need to go solve today. That's an easier problem to solve than us going up market. I think that's true.
But what percent? Like if you're like, I'm going to get 5%, 10%, 15%, 25%.
I would say 20%,
right? Because 20%. If you think about like category owners, like in every mature category, there's a category winner that has 40-50% of that market, sometimes even more. And then you can kind of see like number 2, 3, 4 are somewhere between 20 and like 5% of the market. So you can kind of use that as a way to say, okay, for us, we just look at this and say, if we got 20%, let's try to get 20%, then decide, are we doubling down on this, or are we going to find 20% of something
so that,
else?
And that 20% gets you to 20 to 40 million, which hits that that top of the curve that Adam literally talks about. And then you got a different problem to figure out at that point in time. So, hey, I need to go back to this though. So the overall part of the feedback on last week's episode.
We're going back again.
I'm giving you guys
3 times now.
I'm giving you guys a B+ for the episode, but that's because Andrea gets an A and you guys got a B-.
I don't recall asking you what you thought of the episode. But if I did, and I asked you to grade it on a letter scale, I appreciate the B+. But I don't remember.
I just need to check off that last to do.
We are at the hour, guys.
Yeah, we're at the hour.
Note. We have to go into shout-outs.
All right, fine.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're shouting some people out this time. I'll go first. I have a bunch actually for the first time. I want to shout out the Redpoint market overview that they publish on the market. You can go on Logan Bartlett's LinkedIn profile and pull it from there. It's really interesting. I read a Substack, The Puritans of Venture Capital. It's a really good breakdown on the difference between the craft style venture capitalists, so the benchmarks and the craft ventures from a size perspective, the Union Square ventures, and the capital aggregators like Sequoia and Andreessen, and why you have to understand the difference in their business models. If you're deciding to take capital from them, you have to understand them. We have a hotline live happening next week, April 11th at 2:30 p.m., which will also be the official launch of our Slack channel, which is really cool. And so hope to see a bunch of people there. Those are mine.
Sam?
I'm going to give my shout out to... I don't know. All right, I got one. All right, here we go.
Pulling from the air.
First of all, 2 shout outs. They're totally unrelated. Actually, 3. Okay.
Wow.
There are 2 content recommendations and then a human being. First human being is Ben Tago. Ben bought a company called Objective Management Group, which does sales assessments. So they assess the quality of your current or future sales team. It's a test that you take that spits out a really comprehensive perspective on the quality of your sales team. I took the test from a guy that built the company called Dave Curlin 15 years ago when I worked at Axial, and I had my whole sales team take it. And then I loved that I was reintroduced to Ben recently because he, through a search fund, purchased Objective Management Group. He's a new member of the CEO Pavilion. Objective Management Group's a super cool company, and that testing is something that I don't know of a sales testing company that's prominent or preeminent. And I think there's a big opportunity for this company to become the de facto sales assessment test before you make a hire onto your sales team, and also just to evaluate the quality of your sales team. 2 other recommendations: the show Drops of God on Apple TV. It's a really great show about this guy, Alexander Leger, that writes all of these books about wine, and he leaves his estate to 2 people that have to compete for it. His daughter, Camille Leger, and then the heir to a Japanese diamond empire, Issei Tomine. Hey. And I will, you can watch it to figure out who wins.
It's really good.
Finally, I'm reading The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. And God, she's a great writer. She's just an amazing writer.
That book is so wild, and then that
so
show.
Yeah.
Well, if you want to continue on with Margaret Atwood, the Year of the Flood trilogy, Sam, is like one of my favorite trilogies.
Right. Good. So I will check it out. I will definitely check it out. AJ, did you have a shout out or a win of the week?
Or grievances? That's what you meant to say.
You've aired all of those already.
I'm giving my shout out. I have a couple shout outs. My first shout out goes to the state of Utah. Utah beautiful. Is one of the prettiest places in the world. I say world. I've been there multiple times. We visited 5 national parks, Capitol Reef, Bryce Canyon, Zion. What am I missing there? I'm missing Arches. Of course, we drove through. So like it's unworldly. Everyone should visit it. The natural beauty in the United States is amazing. Austin, get your visa ready. Come visit Utah and hang out.
I mean, before we go, is it okay? I do have. How was it, AJ? Was it amazing?
Yeah,
it was amazing. Trip?
Yeah, it was an amazing
2
trip.
weeks, right? It was the first time you've taken 2 weeks in a long time. Were you able to disconnect?
I disconnected for the first 5 days, but then as it got closer to the end of the quarter, Milligan and I had a daily call, but I kept it. My wife said, Ange said, like, hey, I am impressed by how much you have not been on your phone. And the way I did it is I did the entire drive. I did 1,200 miles in those 6-7 days, and they're beautiful. Scenic Route 12, everyone should go to Utah. My second is I'll give the wins of the week to the first book that I've read for the year, which is 3 Body Problem. It's now a Netflix show.
Yeah,
it's good. Sam, have you read it, or Austin?
Yeah. The next 2 are.
I started Dark Forest.
The Dark Forest is insane, and then the third one, I don't even remember the name of it, is like. I love these shows or these books or these stories where they're just like, we're taking it, we're going all the way.
They went all the way.
Go to the end of known time. It's like, fair enough. Okay.
So I really enjoyed it. I listened to Audible on my drive and read at night. So I'm going to
since you guys read these type of books a lot, do you feel that the shows end up becoming better than the book, or they usually say the book is always better than the movie or the show? Like, does that stay true here as well?
I think it's completely hit and miss.
It's hit or miss. I think the movie Contact does a really good job, both book and movie. That's the one movie in this genre that I'll say and call out. I started the Netflix show. I'm on episode 2. It's okay.
I think the Netflix show is good, actually.
It's good. It's okay. It's good.
Handmaid's Tale is very well cast, I will say, after reading the book. Like it's very good.
Yeah, but Handmaid's Tale is like cuts off the book. Like the book ends very quickly in season 1 or 2, and then they have to make up stuff.
Yeah, that's true. That's why I love the book, because it's like I can tell that it's just a short, concise, and it's just really evocative.
It leaves you wanting more, for sure.
Yeah, 100%. Okay. All right, everybody. Great talking to you. Give us 5 stars. If you have some way of rating the hosts, I would rate me and Asad A and give AJ a C. Anyway, we'll talk to you on Thursday for Topline Hotline. Actually, are we not doing a Topline Hotline because next Thursday is the live one?
No, that's for the next one. No,
the next one. No, I think it's next week.
Isn't it next week?
I don't think we do.
Really, how are things figured out? Okay, bye, everyone.
Bye. We love you. Join our Slack channel. I think join the Topline Hotline live.
Oh, then we have to record the kickoff video.
Okay, we'll do that next. All right, everybody. Bye. And that's a wrap for today's episode, brought to you by SalesLoft. SalesLoft helps revenue teams take the right actions to close every deal with the only platform built around the seller's day. Visit salesloft.com to learn how the world's top revenue teams hit their number by using SalesLoft. Thanks for listening to Topline. New episodes come out every Sunday. If you like what you heard today, subscribe so you never miss an episode, leave a 5-star review, and share it with your friends. Don't forget to join our Topline Slack channel to connect with us and discuss the topics we cover with other listeners. Click the link in the show notes. Lastly, if you're interested in joining Pavilion, you can learn more about membership at joinpavilion.com/membership. Thanks again for listening.